Welcome back to the channel, guys. In today's video, as you can tell, we're going to be looking at what is a good return on ad spend for your brand or overall, right? This is a question I hear so many times when talking to brand owners. Hey, what is a good return on ad spend? What's an expected return on ad spend for my brand? And it's all relative. As you can see right in the last 30 days for this one client, 2.96x return on ad spend. For another one of our clients in the last 30 days, 2.5x return on ad spend. Another client in the last 30 days, 2.68x return on ad spend. This brand in the last 30 days, over $600,000 in spend, 2.5x return on ad spend. And so you might notice to yourself, okay, some of these ad spends are a little bit consistent, and that's actually just a coincidence. Return on ad spend is a variable specific to every brand itself, right? It's not going to be the same for brand A as it is for brand B as it is for brand C. It's going to be very different for your brand compared to my brand, compared to one of my clients' brands. And so what is the return on ad spend? Simply, this is just a variable of your cost per acquisition and your average order value. And so to explain what these variables are and how it works, we're going to use this simple little calculator where all we really have to need to understand here is what is the brand's average order value and what is the cost per acquisition, right? So this calculator is actually going to allow us to find what the break-even return on ad spend is, which is really important to figure out first of all. So you're simply going to put in your AOV, put in your fixed fees per orders, which is essentially going to change your gross profit margin. So if I change this to $10, profit margin is going to drop a little bit, right? So we'll put it back to 75% just for the sake of the conversation. Now, what the variable of the return on ad spend is going to be the cost per acquisition compared to the average order value. So in this example, right, $100 AOV, if we're acquiring a customer for $50, that would be a 2x return on ad spend, right? We're spending $50 to acquire a customer and it's worth, we spent 50 to make 100. That would be doubling the ad spend. And so literally all that number is comparative to each brand is how much we're spending to acquire each individual customer. So for this brand right now, we're spending $22 to acquire a customer that is $56. That's worth $56 to them, right? So if I take 2.34, search this up on Google and multiply this by 2.53, which is what the current return on ad spend is, it's going to generate $56.52, which if we go back to the brand here, that is relative to the average order value, right? And actually it's off by a couple of cents, but that's again, essentially what the return on ad spend is, right? So if your cost per acquisition was, right, let's say, if we go back to this, we'll use another brand as an example here. So without looking at the return on ad spend, I can just simply look at the cost per acquisition and the average order value and to determine how much money was made with the purchase conversion value without looking at the return on ad spend, right? So when we look at the numbers here, we acquired a customer for $32 and spent $68,000 to get there and made 170. So 68,000, we say times by 2. Right, that brings us 136,000 while we made 170,000. So we can kind of move this up slowly but surely to sort of understand what the return on ad spend is, right? So $170,040. So this would be more like a 2.51. And if I go ahead and look at the actual return on ad spend, it is sitting at literally a 2.51x return on ad spend. So again, what you should be focused on as a brand owner is not saying, hey, what is my goal return on ad spend? You should be focused on what is your goal cost per acquisition, because all that variable is just a variable of that return on ad spend. So I hope that makes sense, guys. It definitely makes sense to me. That's how I like to have our clients think about performance when it comes to Facebook ads. If you want to use this calculator, guys, I'll leave the link in the description. But again, essentially what you want to do here is not worry about your goal return on ad spend, right? As you can see here in this example with the AOV to $100, right? A break even would be 1.33. You'd be profiting at a 1.8x return on ad spend. You're profiting at a 1.5x return on ad spend. And so you don't need to say, hey, bare minimum, we need a 2x return on ad spend. You need to be able to understand, hey, once we're starting to add a cost per acquisition into this, what is that actually going to look like when we start to acquire a customer? And how is that going to impact our margins? Because obviously here, breaking even, if you acquire a customer for $75, you're making $0 profit, right? You're breaking even at a 1.3x return on ad spend. If you can acquire a customer for, let's say $50, which is going to be around like that 20% margin, then you're going to be at that 1.8x return on ad spend. And so I'm going to leave this in the description, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. If you're interested in working with my team, links are in the description. As always, see you in the next one.